Welcome back to the Consulting Mind. Today I'm going to guide you through a short episode on understanding the average inflation target. I'm going to enable you to have a clear understanding on this topic, the average inflation target, in 5 minutes. So, to begin with, let's start with a background of the inflation target. The Fed has been pursuing a dual mandate of maximizing employment and price stability from time to time. And how the Fed measure inflation? They will use an indicator named the personal consumption expenditures as an indication of whether or not the inflation is coming or how significant is the inflation by measuring the year-over-year percentage change of this price index. So historically, these two factors, the employment rate and the price stability, is the two major factors that Fed will consider at the same time when they are doing the rate hike or rate cut decision together with the overall macroeconomic situation. So what happened now is that the Fed chairman, Jeremy Powell, has just announced in the Jackson Hole meeting that the Fed will now adopt a flexible 2% average inflation target, abandoning the traditional 2% fixed inflation target. At the same time, it means that there will be no longer a preemptive interest rate hike to counter the perceived inflation risk. And what does that mean? Traditionally, when the Fed think that there might be an inflation risk coming, they might be taking some action even before the inflation rate has yet reached the 2% tradition target, like 1.5, 1.6. If they think that the inflation risk is significant and it might be at an increasing rate. So now effectively, the 2% average inflation target will enable Fed to have a much more autonomy or flexibility to not doing the interest rate hike even when the inflation exceed or reach the 2% target. And we'll talk about the implication next. So what does that actually mean? It means that the official interest rate now will be low, persistently low for a long time, and the Fed will no longer pursue a preemptive interest rate tightening. And the average inflation target of 2% effectively provide a much larger flexibility to Fed in imposing the monetary policy, because even when the inflation rate exceed 2%, like 2.5 or even 2.6%, the Fed can still argue that it is still within the boundary, within the range of the average inflation target. And not to mention that the policy details of how long the average period will be, like half year, 1 year, 2 year, has not yet been disclosed. So that the absolute amounts of the inflation and the average period of the inflation will both enable Fed to have a much higher autonomy and flexibility in doing the monetary policy. And it also shows some implication that Fed is now concerning more employment circumstances more than inflation, because as mentioned before, employment rate and the inflation are the two dual mandate that imposed at the same time by the Fed previously. But now it seems that Fed concerned more about the employment rate, the overall economic expansion, more than the inflation risk. And what the market is expecting now is that they are going to look for the Fed to further explain and elaborate the implication of the new policy framework in the coming September FOMC meeting. And they are also expecting some new forward guidance about what had to happen and what condition, what pre-existing condition that should occur before the Fed will consider rate hiking, because the inflation has now turned to a flexible target. So the market will expect more solid, more details of the circumstances that the Fed will consider rate hike. Let's move on to see how the market react to this new policy framework. As you can see from the chart showing the S&P 500, You can see during and after the Jackson Hole meeting on the 27th of August, the market has gone up because the new monetary policy framework and the average inflation target effectively signify and imply that the Fed will maintain the low interest rate for an even long period, which is a positive sign for the equity market and other risky assets. But after the week of the last August, you can still see the market go down, but that's another story that we might be able to cover later. So today is the very short brief of the Federal Reserve new monetary policy and the implication of the average inflation target. And I hope it can help you. And if you like the video, please click the subscribe and the like button for me. See you soon.